I'm going to start tonight. I'm going to be talking about something called Melodyland. Does anyone here know what Melodyland is? All right, here we go. In August of 1977, the king of rock and roll, Elvis Aaron Presley, leaves the building. He left behind a beautiful ex-wife, a lovely daughter, and a small faction of men pretending to be him for money. That's not fair. Some people did it for money. Other people did it just because it made them feel better. Elvis impersonators go as far back as when Elvis was alive to comment on the movement subculture, raking in sometimes. Some of these guys got like 6 figures for pretending to be Elvis, and that's like a really lucrative thing. There's really famous Elvis impersonators out there. There was Alan Mayer, there was John Hara, there was Danny McKay, not Danny Kaye, Danny McKay. There's a guy named Orion who's weird. He had a really weird career, and his mythos lends to Elvis's in that he was the one that started the story about Elvis faking his death and then continuing on. The Bubba Hotep story, if you were.
It's a good way to start a career.
Yeah. So there was a lot of fake Elvis impersonators. There's like thousands worldwide. One Elvis impersonator in particular named Danny Unowich, I think that's how you say it, U-N-A-W-I-C-H. I have no idea how to say that. Does anybody here? Unowich? We'll go with it. Okay. He went by the name Danny U because he got it too. He decided to pay Elvis Presley and the Presleys' legendary Memphis home known as Graceland a great homage. So Danny U, just to give you a backstory, was raised in Louisiana where he lived near Presley's longtime guitarist James Burton. Danny had been impersonating the King since the early 70s, starting at the love me tender age of 13, like that, and slowly through the years has been working up his way up the Elvis impersonator ladder. Danny had a great desire to pay tribute to Elvis and Graceland, and that stemmed from a promise that he made to Elvis. Danny met the real Elvis in 1973. Upon meeting him, he told Elvis... Okay, there's not somebody standing behind me. Is there someone standing behind me right now? He told the real Elvis that...
Elvis is what I do.
Elvis?
I invited Elvis to be here tonight.
Where was I? Danny U promised the real Elvis that one day I'm going to have a home just like you. So what did he do? In the early 80s, he sought property to build a special kind of monument, and he found that at the corner of Parthenia and Zelza. If anyone's familiar with that.
Elvis's
very far from Memphis.
Part of town.
17912 Parthenia, like I said, on the corner of Zelza, would be the home to Melodyland, the West Coast twin of Graceland. A perfectly replicated Graceland for the San Fernando Valley, which would allow people in Los Angeles who've never been to Memphis to see Graceland. They give them an idea of what it's like. A perfectly sculpted idea of what it's like because it's a direct replica of Graceland. Danny U wanted it on a big boulevard, so he picked Parthenia. It's more long than big, really. And the reason he wanted that is because Graceland was on a big boulevard, Elvis Presley Boulevard. I don't know what it was called before that.
Parthenia.
Also Parthenia. For this project, Danny U would spend $1.5 million to perfectly replicate Graceland. Money he earned impersonating Elvis Presley. So it's just like a cycle. It just builds back into the Elvis lore. Danny flew the contractor, Ricky Davidson, to Memphis so he can get an idea of what Graceland looked like and capture all the details perfectly. It took 4 years to construct Melodyland, but even as it was being built, when it was just a wooden frame, it was getting all this attention. LA Times came out, the media came out, a lot of neighbors they had comments on it. Some passerbys were saying that the idea was interesting, but he picked a weird place to build it. Yeah. One neighbor reportedly said, "So Elvis is in the neighborhood, who cares? I just don't want wild parties."
Then they should be a little disappointed that Elvis is in the neighborhood, which is his new catchphrase.
He never really had a lot of parties there. What he really wanted to do, obviously, other than living there, was to open this as a sort of Elvis monument 2 days out of the year. One would be on the death day, or Elvis's death day, August 16th, and the other one would be on January 8th, which is Elvis's birthday. 2 days of the year it would be open for people. Opening day was on August 16th, the 14th anniversary of Elvis's passing in 1991. Okay, so let's go over Melodyland together. Let's see if I can get this picture going. First off, anyone who knows what Graceland is like, picture that, but over there. That's what Melodyland was like. For anyone else who doesn't know what Graceland looks like, there's a large white wrought iron gate that was decorated with ornamental guitars and musical notes and kind of rounded like an open book. The only people that have those gates is me and him, is what Danny U said about it. The house was 8,000 square feet. It was a 2-story Georgian-style house that had features. It had these Corinthian columns at the entrance with a Hollywood star right there. It said Danny U.
Is that like inside the gates or outside the gates?
Inside the gates, at the front door, outside the door, where the doormat would go.
Okay.
You know where doormats
carpet?
Yeah. It had 3 bedrooms, a ballroom with a huge chandelier, a trophy room which houses a collection of animal heads and a full-size stuffed lion in attack mode, a pond. Instead of a golf course like Graceland had, he had a small putting green. He had a fountain, a statue of Elvis. He had plastic-covered furniture, just like Graceland. He had a jacuzzi, a huge white marble king-sized bathroom with gold-plated sinks. Let's get some pictures going. He had Italian toilets shaped like crouching lions.
What?
Okay.
That sounds frightening.
I want to know what part of the toilet the lion's mouth was.
The flush.
It had to be, yeah. Anything else is kind of weird.
Sideways.
There was a heart-shaped swimming pool, a small recording studio for Danny and his band, a mini museum full of Elvis memorabilia, including books, photos, records, clothing. He had some scarves that Elvis owned. He had some rings that Elvis owned, all valued about $10,000. But Graceland was built over 13 acres. Melodyland is 1 acre. But Danny kept insisting that it was bigger. But I think what he meant was the house was bigger, the property wasn't bigger. I think Melodyland, the house was bigger than Graceland. That's what I was trying to figure out. But I think...
Maybe it's like the Beatles are bigger than Jesus sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're bigger than Graceland. I'm bigger than Graceland.
He was taking a stab at it, yeah.
Literally.
He had bodyguards in red jackets following him around, led by a guy named Tony Wood. They had patches that said TCB, which is Elvis's model for security. Taking care of business. Yeah. You do that, really?
Yeah, I'm an Elvis impersonator. I'm doing it at the end of the show.
A really old Elvis. Yeah. The reason he had security, because people would treat him like the real Elvis and claw at his clothing and try to get him naked. All right. Yeah. I think you're exaggerating. On the actual opening day, however, no one was allowed inside of Melodyland because of safety concerns. I think there was parts of it that weren't finished. But the gap between August and January is so long that he's like, just come. It's August, just get here. But opening day, they still had a thing, though. You can hang out outside, you can look at the exterior, they had a raffle. George Barris, who designed a lot of cars, he designed the original Batmobile, the Flintstones car. He had designed a 1958 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, and they called it the Elvis Cadillac. It was inlaid with gold. That was on display. I don't know if he made it for Elvis or if he made it for Danny. You probably Elvis. They were passing out Elvis's favorite food to his fans, jelly donuts. At that point, he did the one thing Elvis would never do. He didn't wolf down all the donuts. He looked at Elvis's demise and was like, nah, I think I figured it out.
That's the only way you know it's an Elvis impersonator and not the real. You put a bunch of donuts in front of him.
He won't eat them.
And if they're still there in 3 minutes, that's not Elvis.
Melodyland would serve not only as a great monument and its weird valley oddity, but it was also seen by locals as an Elvis museum. It was a place where you went and you worshipped Elvis. It was only open 2 days out of the year, like I mentioned, but it has the same schedule as any other museum in town, so why not?
I've driven past that my whole life, and I always thought it was Richard Pryor's house.
Oh, that's right.
Because I knew Richard Pryor lived around there, and I never would have thought it was how did I not know it was an Elvis impersonator's house?
People would wait 2 hours sometimes to get the tour of it, and Danny U would emerge in full Elvis regalia, and people would lose their minds. They'd want to take pictures with him. That was... sounded like a really great thing. What was great about it, in my opinion, was that it brought a lot of Elvis fans together because they would just hang out at these monuments of Elvis and just talk about when did you see Elvis? Why do you like Elvis? Why does Elvis mean to you? So it's a really cool thing, and it happened, like I said, over there. Parthenia and Zelza. So that's 1991, and then something hits Northridge in 1994. The Earth.
I don't remember. I was lying in my bed wetting myself because I was so scared.
Melodyland took a decent but destructive hit from the 94 earthquake. The chandeliers in the ballroom came crashing down, marble and glass shattered, the walls were
sounds like
cracked.
An Elvis music video, though. They could have just used that.
That's how Jailhouse Rock ends.
Yeah, with an earthquake.
With an earthquake, yeah.
The Northridge earthquake.
The LA Times used the headline, "All Shook Up." I'm only mad because I didn't get to it first. I'm like, all shook up. As another article put it, it went from Melodyland to Heartbreak Hotel in minutes. Oh boy,
I know what
no mercy. It would take 2 years and $50,000 worth of repairs for Danny to rebuild and reopen it in 1996. So sadly, it was closed in 1995 for Elvis's 60th birthday. He seemed like there was going to be an attempt in 97 to get things going again because he was having like Elvis owned a chair, he bought the chair, and he was having it refurbished, and it got in the LA Times for some reason. So it seemed like he was like gaining traction again. But like the financial burden that the earthquake had laid on him, it was too much for him to handle. So around 1997, 1998, he plans to sell it. And in the way he wants to sell it, it's some sort of Willy Wonka contest. Let me see if I got all the details right.
He got 5 kids from all over the world who loved Elvis.
Okay, so apparently in May of 1998, they're selling these $4.99 long-distance phone cards bearing the likeness of Danny U. And apparently on his birthday, January 8th, you get a phone call, I guess, saying that you won the house. The names were pulled at random. You didn't have to be like an honest little kid like Charlie Bucket. Like, you can be Mike TV and win Melodyland.
And he did.
Yeah, and he did. Based on the sales price of the $1.5 million home, though, the annual property taxes would have been $19,000. don't know if that's a lot or little. I don't know money. And I cannot find out how the sweepstakes turned out. There's no articles on it. But in 2002, Danny sold Melodyland to a man whose last name was King. At which point
First name The.
it stayed untouched. It fell into abandoned disrepair. Then it was once again sold in 2008. There's a lot of articles saying that Danny was going to buy it back, but he never bought it back. Someone else bought it, and they're not really doing anything with it. All the Melodyland stuff is gone now, except for the heart-shaped pool was in the front yard. I walked by this morning, and I could only see the bar to pull you out of the pool, but I couldn't see the pool.
Yeah, that's why, because I never saw the words Melodyland in those musical notes on the front gate. That's why I assumed it was Richard Pryor's.
Richard Pryor lives anywhere where it doesn't say Melodyland. Danny Unowich, the man who built Melodyland, has laid very, very low since that point. My limited research skills could not dig up that much about his whereabouts, but he has a wife and kid and a lot of properties in the valley, so he's probably doing fine. Melodyland is fondly remembered as a Great Valley oddity. As I put it, like I'm so important. He wasn't fake.
As the great Greg Gonzalez once said.
He wasn't fake Elvis living in a fake Graceland. He was a real Elvis impersonator living in a real Graceland impersonation.
So Elvis is a state of mind, is what you're saying.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get at is that you feel Elvis more than it's a real Elvis.
We are all Elvis.
Okay, that's it for Melodyland.